I'm ready to be bathed in neon light.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another vlog of Raleigh Game Studios. Today we are continuing Cyberpunk September with episode 2. We're talking today about aesthetics and video games in the cyberpunk world.
So today we're talking about all the stuff that is most recognizable. Last week we covered a lot of themes, and it was very cerebral and heady. And we'll probably go down a rabbit hole again today because we're just so excited.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the last episode, it's very stream of conscious, talking, unscripted, raw, just us nerding out. And in case you aren't familiar, Cyberpunk September was originally chosen to celebrate the release date of Cyberpunk 2077, which has been a game that CD Projekt Red has been working on since 2012, based off of the tabletop board game of the same name by Mike Pondsmith. So we've been really excited about this. Of course, it was originally supposed to come out in April, then they picked September, and then they delayed it again to November. We didn't think Cyberpunk November would sound very good, though November will be thankful for Cyberpunk 2077. That can be a completely different episode.
Some of the aesthetics we think of when we talk about Cyberpunk, it factors in a lot of things that I think were big, because it's all really congealed in the 80s. The early 80s, all this kind of solidified. So you got a lot of the 80s aesthetic, neon lights, bright colors. There's a lot of pinks and greens. I guess the big thing over the last couple of years, I've been seeing like a lot of that grid, that grid pattern that kind of stretches into the distance.
Straight to video, VHS, sequencing, yeah,
definitely the opening video sequence with like the upbeat music.
Yeah, completely synthesized.
Yeah. And then something has to like spin in and then spin back out.
Yep.
Oh man. So I mean that stuff is still a bit retro. That kind of retro style is kind of pasted throughout Cyberpunk, I feel like. And it's never super cheesy like what I just described, but it is there. There's a lot of neon, a lot of grids. I think the Matrix did a good job of kind of introducing a tone of like, they shot every scene in green when it's in the Matrix, and it has that weird overtone. And they also kind of did a good job of introducing the Japanese kind of feel as well, with all the kanji running down the computer, which sometimes we have that. I guess we can't have that today. We can't have nice things, Chris. Oh man, there was a glitch in the Matrix, and now we're here. Like one of my favorite things about the Matrix was incorporating like the kind of this coding language slash like Japanese kanji aesthetic, and it just really worked to kind of brand that. You're never going to see that and not think the Matrix. Which I always like. I think part of my fascination with Cyberpunk in general is that there's an overlap with like a lot of specifically Japanese, just because of Akira and its influence, and then Neuromancer. There's a lot of everything is a Japanese megacorp. So you've got all these signs and ads, and the Yakuza factors in. It's not the Mafia, it's the Yakuza.
Yeah.
And I guess like Blade Runner was a big one. Like they have a lot of I would say Japanese aesthetic influence. I think one of the big geisha ad that's running like during that opening scene.
Watching that, like, that definitely had an influence on me, especially all of the neon signs. Like, to me, that's the quintessential look for cyberpunk, is that opening sequence onto the cityscape of where they are. And like, to such a degree that, you know, I love the neon signs, even incorporated into our logo. You know, that was one of the things that I said was I wanted to kind of look like a neon sign, and like, there you have it. Like, I love that aesthetic so much.
But that's the cool thing too, is like it shows this this result of like globalization on like a supreme scale. Like, every country in the world, and this is a big thing in like Gibson's books, is like you hop to London or you hop to Tokyo or Chiba, and it's like all interconnected. Travel is so fast that like the world is very small and crowded now. And there's such a blend of cultures that you can't get, it's unrecognizable. And I think for some people that might be a very dark, scary thing, but for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, I could really go for some noodles right now. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's this global melting pot.
Yeah. And the neon is kind of juxtaposed with a lot of darkness. I don't think there's been a cyberpunk movie, anything that we've been discussing that doesn't have like a dark side to it or a dark opening. The sky is usually, you know, super dark, or has like a reddish tinge. Any light that you see a lot of times is artificial. Like, for most of whatever you're watching, but that's the aesthetic, is like dark sky, neon lights.
Yeah.
And you get the sense that nature is just kind of effed. Like, everything is city. there are no trees or anything. Even like Westworld, which I would consider cyberpunk to a degree, you know, all the trees and stuff, that's all, it's either fake or it's been groomed. It's not natural. It's not real in a sense of, you know, being somewhere you can go and not be surrounded by technology and artifice.
Well, and I lose a bit of that in Blade Runner proper, but in Philip K. Dick's original novel of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, that's a big theme, is that none of the animals are real. They're all, you know, made up, and having real animals is a big no-no. Like, you can't have real animals because they're all endangered, and they need to be protected. So it kind of hits on that, like how much industrialization and corporations have taken over and how much the environment has taken a back seat.
And you see these spheres over and over again, and the aesthetic, you know, it's like metal pipes and stuff everywhere. You know, Final Fantasy VII, Midgar is like super cyberpunk. Like, it's,
oh yeah.
it's,
yeah, the city,
sweet.
definitely the city proper. Like, the rest of it feels very much like fantasy, but Midgar is definitely a cyberpunk hellscape.
Yeah. I would even argue, honestly, that Ninja Turtles, especially, I think there was that second series that came out like in the mid-90s, is cyberpunk. It's got all the trappings.
We'll have to have a discussion about this, like, very in depth, because it's definitely, because the original Ninja Turtles, I think, is definitely inspired by film noir. Film noir, you have that chiaroscuro with the shadow play and you know, light and dark, which comes into a lot of cyberpunk, as you were talking about earlier.
But something to be debated. Okay.
For sure. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is it cyberpunk?
It is.
Stay tuned.
Want to move on and transition into discussing cyberpunk games. So I feel like late 80s, early 90s, Cyberpunk tabletop role-playing games started to become really big. Steve Jackson Games was developing their Cyberpunk game around the same time, for their, I think it's for their GURPS system. And it actually got delayed, and at least a year, probably 2 years, because they got raided by the FBI. So, in the story there, they basically, one of the people they had hired as a hacker, I guess, because he he was implicated in an event where I think AT&T had some of their data stolen concerning their like 911 system.
Oh, wow.
And the FBI tracked it. So basically, they just one day rolled up into Steve Jackson Studios and were like, "All right, we're taking your computers, all of them," and they wouldn't give it back. Like, they would not give the game back. They had to completely do it over from scratch. There's a disclaimer, a little box at the beginning of the book now that's basically like, "Yep, like we got raided by the FBI, so there you go." Which now I just want to play it.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk took on a kind of a life of its own. It had its own fan base and was its own game. I feel like it's always been niche, though. It's never really gotten as big as like D&D.
Word.
You know, it makes sense. Like, it's not going to click with everybody. But I mean, who doesn't want to play like a Netrunner and hack into a bunch of stuff? Literally with your mind, you know, like, or like a bruiser character with like a laser gun and just like mess people up. It's just so fun.
What do we got? Shadowrun.
Shadowrun. Oh. I've never had nostalgia for a game that I didn't play, but really want to play now. Other game I was going to mention, I have here. I love it so much. It is Netrunner. What's that? Yeah, Fantasy Flight released this in like, I want to say like 2011 or something. It was like right when I moved back to the States, and it was like the first game that Jen and I kind of played together as a couple. But you play like a hacker, and you're facing off against a mega corporation. And so it's super fun. It's asymmetrical, so you don't have the same abilities and you don't start off with the same perks. So it's a very interesting setup. It's a very different feel from other card games. So I really dug it and was super into it for years. It is sadly not being published anymore. Really fun to play, really easy to pick up. And I think that's part of what kind of solidified my love of the genre, is just playing this game with my now fiance and just like being able to be like, "Oh, you thought you hacked into like my database? What? It's not. It's a trap. You're dead." Like, it's super fun.
Going back to Cyberpunk video games, one of the ones that I remember and especially being influential is System Shock, and then its sequel, System Shock 2, which is kind of a first-person shooter type game, and it was created by Looking Glass Studios, and also to some extent with Irrational Games, which you probably recognize as the company behind the BioShock series, which is a great series in and of itself, and more of a steampunk feel, which not the topic of this, but
yeah.
obviously
sure.
it shares those similar vibes too with Cyberpunk. Work correctly, because it's been several years since I've played. You're like stuck. You wake up from, I don't know, like your cryostasis pod or something on your spaceship or your space station or something, and everyone's dead, and you have to kind of investigate and find out what happened. And it's almost like a, HAL 9000 type thing where the AI has taken over the ship or something to the. And I'll say my memory of it's very fuzzy on the details. So if that's not right, I apologize in advance. Something along those lines.
Cool. I need to check those out. I actually never heard about those until now, so I need to check that out. I was also going to mention Deus Ex, because I don't think we can talk about Cyberpunk without Deus Ex, and sadly, I wasn't exposed to that series when it was like new, or at least the first game or first couple games. I played Human Revolution in like 2011, and was really. It is Cyberpunk. It's just like, yep, you upgrade yourself, and you can choose, if you want to be able to like hack the robots, because of course you're fighting robots and cyborgs and stuff, and everyone's like cybernetically enhanced or augmented. So it gets into that a lot, but it kind of allows you different avenues to solve problems and get through a level. So you can hack stuff. You can just boost your offensive abilities. You can just power through and shoot everything.
Yeah.
It gives you
like
a lot
those RPG elements where you can customize your character a bit.
Yeah, and it really honored that a lot. Until the end of the game, where you just fight a giant robot and you got to shoot it to death. And so if you went like the kind of passive, manipulative, like sneaky route, like good luck, I guess.
Yeah.
It's the one time, like I think that's the first time I really had anything relevantly critical about a game design, and like, wait, why did they do that? So I'm gonna avoid that in the future when we make our games. I'm gonna make sure if choice is involved, choice will be honored and built into aspects of the game, not just like on a superficial level.
Well, especially if you give the option to build your character a particular way, that is going to lead to that dead end where you can't finish the game because your character's too weak for a physical encounter that final battle relies on.
Yeah.
Game design 101.
Yeah. So. Still recommend it. Super fun game. Just keep in mind, make sure you got a few points in your shooting, because you're gonna need it at the end of the game. You cannot hack the giant robot. Yes.
Click on the link, but
tell me how wrong I am about like half the stuff I talked about. Do it.
Yeah. Start that conversation with us.
Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, that's all for today. Next episode, stay tuned. We'll talk more about Cyberpunk.
Yes. And Cyberpunk proper, the game.
Yeah. And signing off for now. I'm Chris.
I'm Jeff. Bye.
Bye. It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah. I think someone just hacked my cyber brain.